Welcome to Try Your Breast. We're off to a great start.
Keep it. It's perfect.
Perfect. A refreshing and approachable podcast dedicated to the exciting realm of innovative technology. As a collective endeavor behind the minds of Ghost Creative, Precision Point newsletter, and Code and Compassion newsletter, we aim to make technology not just accessible, but engaging for everyone.
That's what we do. So let's talk a little bit about kind of who we are,
Sure.
A little bit about Ghost Creative, to get this thing started off on the right foot. So we know each other, so this is a little weird that I'm looking at you telling you about myself.
Right.
We're gonna do this. So my background is in software development, but I grew up in a very blue collar world. My dad started a business in the oil and gas field. My brother now runs it. Lots of muddy boots and grease. And then I decided to run as far away from that as I could to get into a white collar world. Studied software development, been doing that for 25 years. Had some really cool opportunities to work for companies like NASA and Lockheed Martin and SAIC doing radar signal processing and all kind of nerdy stuff. And then I always joked that I worked my way down the corporate ladder instead of up it because I didn't want to work longer hours and make less of an impact.
Sure.
And so I worked for smaller and smaller companies until about 7 years ago when I made the, crazy decision to jump ship with 3 kids and a pregnant wife at home and start my own business.
That's what responsible adults do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've never heard. And so I started Ghost Creative. It's evolved, especially through the pandemic, evolved from more of a marketing automation company to a pure software development company. And you've been very, very instrumental in that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, recently we started talking about these personal brands and how we need to talk a little more about our philosophies and get those out there. And so I started Code and Compassion, and really it's the merger between this idea of technology, right? Being able to increase efficiency and help businesses make more money. Let's be frank, right? Like help businesses make more money.
Absolutely.
But also not just the internal humanity of running a company and treating people well. And we talk all the time about candor and kindness. But also like using our skills to actually make an impact in the world, right? So yes, helping companies make money, it has an impact, and what they do with their money is their business. And some of our customers are doing amazing things with their profits. But there's also just these projects that there's just problems that need to be solved, and technology can solve them, and they're not necessarily financially beneficial, but they need to be solved. And that's
but
a lot
I
of
think
what we
there's
talk about.
also a misnomer still, even in 2023, that technology is limited, for lack of a better word. We're constantly running into customers that say things like, well, I have this idea, but I know you can't do it.
Right.
When in reality, the application of software today is almost limitless. If you can imagine it, it's probably technically possible.
Yeah, and that's been, a lot of these big companies get bad names, and listen, some of it is deserved, but the things that Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Apple have been able to provide from a development standpoint, they're allowing developers to do things that were impossible, literally impossible a decade ago. And the example I always use is you can create an account on Amazon Web Services today for free, and you can download live satellite data. So think about what that would have taken 20 years ago to say, like, you know what, we need some satellite data. So all we need to do is create a satellite or rent one, make sure it gets into space, and then have some mechanism to be able to pull that back into my iPhone.
And most of the parties that had a satellite that you could rent from are probably governments, and they're not likely to give you that access.
Exactly. So, yeah. So that's kind of a brief background of where I came from, what led me to where we are literally this minute talking about this stuff.
Right. So my background's kind of a different track for sure. But my dad's background, I mean, he started in the logging industry. That's not an easy job. That's muddy boots and that's hard work. And he kind of followed the same path ideal that you did, going into industrial sales because, well, he got his legs crushed up to his knees by a planer in this sawmill. And what do? Do you get up and you keep going back to that abusive job? No, you find something else to do. So for me, I kind of saw that hard work and integrity from the blue collar world, and then this drive to provide good solutions to his customers. My path, I went into the restaurant business early, right out of high school, because I thought it was an appealing trade. It's fun for a young person, right? Left there, did business communication systems. So was installing Toshiba phone systems and networking equipment, and realized that I had a real passion for the booming computer industry. Joined the military because I knew I could get good training there. Saw the nighttime bombing campaign on the USS Theodore Roosevelt for the Shock and Awe campaign. Did 14 months in Afghanistan, which as a sailor was kind of confusing because Afghanistan's landlocked. My mom was really confused by that. Did 3 years at the Naval Hospital in Naples, Italy, came back and did pirate interdiction operations in the Gulf of Aden and, parts, Southeast Asia area. So I've seen technology being used in high op tempo, high impact, high threat areas. And I've managed all of that equipment while managing the people that have to maintain it and operate it and keep their buddies alive. And honestly, it made me the adult that I am. I would not have been a good adult without military influence. And then we had Sophie, and I didn't want to make the decision of staying in the military and knowing that potentially she could not have a dad. Though in reality, that risk is one that everybody, but circumstances, So managed a $12 million construction project for Erie Insurance. Started there as a system administrator. Did the whole kind of mental transition as I was going back to school. Because I didn't finish. I went to Virginia Tech. I didn't finish my degree. Mainly because even at 43, I still don't know what I want to do with my life. I think that's such an esoteric question, but that's a different. Tried multiple different verticals to find where my fit was, and realized that working for other people always left me questioning if we were making the best decisions. And so coming here and joining the team at Ghost allowed me to use the 30,000 foot view that I'm cursed with. I don't think that I kind of make light of that, but I think that there are people who don't have the capacity to see the bigger picture.
Sure.
And you need those folks with the tactical energies, but I've always been fascinated with the bigger picture, and being able to do that here and help our customers build products that make their businesses successful has been an amazing experience. And so publishing content through the newsletter Precision Point is really taking the things that I've seen and the things that I know and put them into a digestible format, because I think one of the biggest problems that I've had throughout my career is I'm really good at reading the situations, but the reasons why are a lot less clear. And so being able to kind of take each one of those pieces of experience and provide them to other people as context for how I make my decisioning is really an enjoyable experience, and it's helpful for me because I get to kind of peel the layers back and understand why I make the decisions that I make. So it's been a really interesting experience to kind of peel the layers back and put some of that content out there. It's been an initiative that I've been trying for probably 5 years, and this is the format that I think finally works the best.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because this is not on the list of things that we're going to talk about, but I think it's important is when you came to Ghost Creative, I'm like, you know, when you have this spectrum of like emotional and logical, every personality test I've ever taken, I'm slammed all the way on the end of logical, right?
Right.
And so, you know, you came on board and it was like, we should do this. And I'm like, why? You're like, I don't know. And I'm like, not good enough. Right.
Right. True.
And since then we've, you know, through trial and error and, you know, some arguments and some heart to hearts, it's like, no, there's a good balance here of like logic and gut feel. And I love that you're doing Precision Point, because it's helping you think through those whys, right? Without somebody pointing a finger in your face and saying,
Yes.
why are you doing this, right?
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch, watch you do that. So, so we already talked about some of this stuff, right? With the journey of Ghost.
Right.
Can you dig a little bit more into what we're trying to do at Ghost, and even talk about some of the new initiatives that we've talked about with SaaS Factory and things like that?
Well, and I think one of the biggest pushes, like you guys were doing that when I was in the process of coming on board. So for folks that don't know, I spent 18, probably 20 months doing this as like my side hustle, which is kind of a lot to say as being a fractional COO and project manager while still trying to do a full-time job.
With, let's be clear, systems that were not in place, so you're trying to project manage and build systems. I mean, it's the old adage of like, you know, jumping off the cliff and building the parachute on the way down. Like you were doing that part-time.
Yes. But the really fascinating part about that period in time was I was also working for a utility company on a software project. And so to see what essentially a blue-collar industry was trying to do with technology that they clearly didn't understand. The development team understood because they were the ones putting it together. But the leadership team, it was almost like talking to a group of people from the 1990s. They hadn't seen what current technology could do. Even though all of them have smartphones, all of them are probably catching an Uber at least once a week. They've probably stayed in an Airbnb. So they're using all this brand new modern technology. But they still believed that they were in the utility business. And they didn't fully understand that because they'd been in the utility business for 100 years, they weren't solving those problems anymore. They had all of their procedures and all of their documentation and all their regulatory compliance complete. Now it was they needed to pivot to being an information company. And I think that really was kind of the catalyst for me coming on board and starting putting all these things into place because both you and I have a passion for those honest, hardworking, blue-collar families who their industry is scared of that technological impact because it's unknown and they don't want to ruin the good thing that they have.
Right.
And so really the core of what we're trying to do for our customers is leverage this almost limitless technology source in these manual processes that these blue-collar companies have. I mean, multi-billion-dollar company where the field employees are using pen and paper to document all the work that they're doing and giving it to another union employee to input into their system in 2023 sounds archaic because it is.
But it's happening everywhere.
The entire, I don't want to beat on the blue collar guys because they're doing the work, and they know that they need to make a change, but there's nobody who wants to speak their language.
That's it.
You know, you've told great stories about your grandfather having, you know, the grit, the blue collar grit that takes to build railroads and great big magnificent things. And so they have those skill sets. They have the ability to do that work, but then they're being left on the side because the work has to get done. In those industries, the physical work is completely separate from the documentation of the process. And so we're giving them that interconnection that they need with the technology and being able to go in and speak their language.
Yeah. And coming from blue-collar families, quite honestly, those industries sometimes get left behind because, let's be real, some of those guys are little rough around the edges. Right?
No. That whole industry wouldn't be abrasive at all.
No, and we love it. And we talk about this internally all the time. We love it because if we build something that somebody doesn't like, they're going to be like, that's BS and throw it back at us, right? And some people just aren't equipped to handle that. Based on how we grew up and where we came from, we're very well equipped to handle that. And so we can serve them well because that's actually what we want to hear, right? We want to have those conversations because on the other side of that coin, if it's great, they're going to be like, this is great, right?
Yes.
They're ready to move quickly. And, you know, one of the things, Tim, that you had mentioned is a lot of these folks don't quite understand the technology even though they're using smartphones. And I think that's one of the side effects of things being very easy to use, right? So because things are very easy to use, smartphones got adopted across the entire world. Mm-hmm. But like when you had a Commodore 64, you had to know a little bit about computers to be able to use the thing at all.
Right.
We're completely detached from that. So people have no idea what's possible. They have no idea what the capabilities of technology are, but they can still use it because it's been made so easy. So they're stuck in this spot where they could benefit from it. They don't really understand maybe what all the potential is and how easy some of the stuff is. And they don't have time to do it because they're out there like making the country run every day, literally. So
Right.
Yeah. Should I play some music?
Yeah. Elevator music would be preferable. We kind of skipped all over the place, so I'm just running through these notes. Let's skip specific topics. Can you discuss the need for compassion in the tech industry?
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about this. There's lots in the news about treating employees well.
Yes.
Right? And I'm all for that. But I think that's the low-hanging fruit, quite honestly. Like, I think that, like, that's the price to play, right? Like,
yes.
How did we get to a place where we have to look another human in the eye and say, you should treat people well, right? Like, so when we're talking about treating employees well, I'm like, one, I'm ashamed that we even have to have that conversation.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, I think there's so much more to it. There are some really, really talented people that right now, this second, are solving problems that most people that are just going about their day cannot even fathom that it would be solvable, let alone do it in a way that these people are doing it, right? And we're using those skills to build better marketing engines so that people will buy more stuff that they don't need, right? And this is part of the reason that Ghost Creative pivoted, because we were in the marketing space, and I couldn't stomach it anymore, right? When it's like we're just trying to use these automations to convince people to buy more stuff that they really don't need and probably can't afford, based on all the data that's out there, right? And then when you look on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I've told this story a bunch of times, but there was a horrible tragedy here in Erie a few years ago, and there was a daycare center there was a daycare center that an overnight daycare center that burned, and there were some kids that died in that fire. And and this is not an indictment, I don't know all the details. All I know is the news report said that there was one smoke detector in that daycare. And that came off the heels of about 6 months prior. My wife was part of this program from the Red Cross out of Pittsburgh, where they were literally going around and knocking on doors and not just giving smoke detectors to people, but going in with drills and installing them for free.
Right.
And I'm like, how do we live in a world where we can have an organization that is doing amazing things like getting teams of people together to literally go install free smoke detectors into houses.
Right.
And at the same time, we can't, with technology, let a daycare center know that, like, hey, you need more smoke detectors, right? How does that happen at the same time? And I'm like, if you put 10 developers and a hardware engineer in a room, they can solve that problem in a day and build the solution in a week, literally. Like,
Yes.
I know because our team could do it, right? But there's not money in it, right? There's not...
Who benefits? The question that we don't ask is who benefits?
Right.
Only the people that receive the smoke detectors. Well, how do I monetize that? That's the question going through some executive's brain at, the Salvation Army or the Red Cross, or how do we use this to make more money?
Right.
Well, you don't. There's zero profitability in that venture, but it improves the quality of someone's life.
Right.
And one of the things that you've said to me more times than I can count is we want to do things that need to be done, not because there's a profit in it, but because it's the right thing.
Yeah. And so in these big businesses, it's not an indictment on them. Like, they're doing good stuff, but they can't solve all the problems either. And
Right.
so why aren't companies like ours stepping up and saying, we're going to put a little bit of our money on the line to try to go solve some of these problems? And so that's what we're working towards, right? Like,
Right.
that's what we're working towards. And and that's what we're hoping to encourage other people to work towards. And there are people out there doing it, right? We're not going to pretend like no one's doing this, but there's so much opportunity to go build solutions that, like, truly save and change people's lives. And the technology is, like, right there to go do it. We just need the people to organize it and the people to go do it. And that's one of the things that we're incredibly passionate about is solving some of those problems, so we never have to read a news story like that again.
Right. One of the things that's along the same line that's near and dear to my heart is just kind of the sustainability movement. I feel like one of our biblical mandates is to leave things better than we found them. Like, just that stewardship of the resources that God provided us with.
Yep.
And one of the things that, as I have kind of tried to understand the political landscape along with what we're doing to take care of our future generations, you've got 4 kids, I have 2. They need jobs and they need homes to live in that will function for their entire lifespan as well as their children. And we seem to be in this disposable economy right now. Like, it used to be that when I was going to pull my phone out of my pocket, but it's right there. When you needed something fixed, you take it to someone and they would fix it. Today, if my phone stops working, I can't really take it. I mean, I'm sure there are a handful of shops. There's a guy in Australia that I watch it on Instagram. He gets phones shipped to him. He fixes them and then ships them back. I don't want to pay shipping to Australia, quite frankly. Right. But it's just easier to go into a Verizon store and sign up for a payment plan to get a brand new, Note or iPhone or whatever it is. And I feel like we're treating so many different things with that disposable economy mindset. So for me, whether climate change or any of that stuff is accurate, whether the science is accurate or what we're being fed through the media is accurate, I feel like we have a responsibility to try our best with what we're doing with homes and vehicles and technology so that our future generations can enjoy the rewards of that sustainable universe that we've built for them, not have to figure out how to pick up the pieces of our poor management of the world around us. And it's one of those exercises where, like, you look at a building like this. It's a 14-story building downtown Erie, Pennsylvania. It will take multi-million dollars invested into this property to keep it around for another 100 years. Yeah. And I feel like we have an obligation as a society to take care of the resources that we have and make sure that we're setting the city or the county or your driveway with a sustainable vehicle or home or whatever, so that we don't. So we can feel good about the future we're leaving for our families, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. This disposable culture has gotten completely out of control, right? And it's it's very difficult to come back from, because part of the reason that it didn't exist before is there were multiple generations of people that knew how to fix stuff.
Yes.
We joked with one of our customers about doing kind of a skit where you give a project, like a small construction project, to like 3 different generations, right? And see who can get it done first and see who can't complete it at all. Like, we're just not, and that's on us to teach our kids
Education,
to do those things, right? But yeah, we're getting away from, the more we get into a disposable culture, the more we're stuck there and can't get out of it.
Right.
And that's where we're on that cusp right now, that everything is about sustainability, but I'm like, we're not training people to fix stuff.
Right.
And that's a huge piece of sustainability. But yeah, awesome.
Or we can just wait for optimists to come fix everything for us, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I'd rather not, but it is an option.
Look, I'm all down for the robot uprising as long as I can sit on my patio and drink martinis.
All right.
So next week, we're going to do this again. We're going to try and make this a weekly thing.
We're going to try our best to make this a weekly thing.
Try our best to make this a weekly thing. Absolutely. So next week we're gonna talk about some of the local initiatives here to help other businesses get their technology projects started. How kind of the path of a software as a service product, so that we can paint that picture of, if you have an idea, there's a path for you to make it a reality and potentially create some sort of revenue stream for yourself or your business, or maybe just improve the efficiency of the processes that you have built as your own organization. So we're going to kind of unpack that workflow from idea to delivered product and how that can work for you guys. Whether you're a seasoned professional, a budding tech enthusiast, or a curious listener, Try Your Best has something for you. So tune in next week and join us as we explore the future of technology, one potentially engaging episode at a time. So thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys.